Welcome to the Somatic Coaching Academy Podcast. I'm Ani Anderson.
And I'm Brian Trzaskos. Join us as we explore the science
and art of trauma-sensitive somatic practices and tools.
Strengthen your practice as a coach, therapist, or holistic professional.
Master the art of motivating even the most challenging clients when you understand how to tap into and unlock your client's complete holistic intelligence.
If you want to learn the most cutting-edge, research-supported skills for personal and professional mastery, you've come to the right place. Let's get this conversation started.
Hi, and welcome to the Somatic Coaching Academy Podcast. Morning, Brian.
Good morning, Ani.
How are you?
I'm doing well today, and you?
I'm very good, thanks.
It's another week. Love being here on the podcast.
I love it too. I look forward to it every week.
Ooh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, exciting.
Yeah.
Nice. All right.
We're on episode 81 today, and we're talking about something that is all the buzz recently. It's been around for a little while now, but it's really picking up steam out there, talking about the BANI world.
The BANI world.
We're really excited about this because it's, the Brian and Ani world, obviously. No.
Just take the R out of it, and there you go. The BANI world. Yeah, right.
No.
So
you may not have heard of this, but it's kind of like a term floating around in the business space, and more people are kind of finding out about this conceptualization.
Yeah. So American philosopher by the name of Jimmy Cascio kind of came up with this concept of the world feeling brittle and anxious and nonlinear and incomprehensible. And but before we talk about that, there was actually a model, and I don't know who came up with this, kind of preceding Cascio's work that they called the VUCA world.
So I'm curious, and you might not know the answer to this question. Have we been doing this for like hundreds of thousands of years, where we talk about this conceptualization of like how the world is right now, or is the VUCA thing the first time? Do you know?
No,
where this came from?
I doubt it's the first time, because as humans, we're meaning-making creatures, right? We're always making meaning. And we're always trying to find ways to understand the world that we live in.
And communicate about it.
And so we're coming up with models to do that. So
because I hadn't heard of anything before VUCA.
Yeah. So I don't know. There maybe it was a model in business or, the organizational world before that.
Sure. And VUCA had been happening for quite some time.
Yeah.
Before
people talk about the world as being a VUCA world. So why don't we just talk about that?
For a long time before this BANI thing came around.
Started. Yeah. So what's kind of the VUCA world about? And then we'll kind of go into this BANI idea. So VUCA stands for volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. Which when you kind of transition into BANI, it definitely sounds like an evolution of it. It doesn't sound like it's a complete discarding of kind of the VUCA framework. Right. It just kind of sounds like what Cascio is saying is that the world has become more of those VUCA things. So let's rename them as something else. To me, it kind of sounds like an evolution.
An evolution, yeah.
Right? Because volatility is really about the speed of change, like how fast things are changing. The idea of uncertainty is really kind of like what it sounds like. It's uncertain. We don't know what's going to happen next. We can't really predict what's going to happen next, sort of thing. Complexity kind of refers to the idea of it's just complex, right? There's a lot of things going on at the same time, a lot of reactability between things that are happening in the world. So things are just highly complex. Again, this Cascio kind of started coming out with his framework about, probably this is 2025, 3 years ago, 4 years ago.
It was right after COVID time, wasn't it?
Yeah, we actually did a series of LinkedIn Lives on BANI framework, and we did it about 2 or 3 years ago. I went back and looked. So that's when we were first introduced to it. I think it might have been around a little bit.
Yeah, I think it was fairly new. Yeah.
And then the A in VUCA is ambiguity, which really, it just refers to a lack of clarity of like, we're not clear about what's going on or clear about what's happening or how do we communicate it clarity, all those kinds of things. So what Cascio is saying is that in our current world, that kind of the VUCA framework is outdated. It doesn't clearly describe how much faster things are happening and changing right now, how complex they really, really are, how incredibly uncertain things are, and how ambiguous things are. So he reframed that to the idea of today's world actually feels more brittle. So not just volatile, but actually brittle.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, a lot of organizational leaders just feel like things could just like completely break,
Yeah.
and where people are kind of leaving than ever before, and there's like all this kind of touchiness, right? Like
Yeah.
walking on eggshells kind of feeling.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah, and decisions in organizations create again massive results that are unexpected because it feels like it's very brittle, like things are kind of easily broken,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And so that kind of feels like it's happening, and then we transition in this idea of feeling anxious.
Boy, I think that's a hallmark of our time for sure. I mean, you know me, I don't know what the statistics are. The anxiety has not gone anywhere and it just keeps kind of growing.
Yeah.
And the amount of anxiety people are feeling all over the place is just it's rampant.
Hmm.
I hear about it all the time.
Yeah. And you know, when you think about that, again, the transition from in the VUCA world, uncertainty,
Hmm.
and that kind of transitions into anxious in the BANI world. And those, the way I think about those is uncertainty is kind of like a kind of an objective thing. Like things are uncertain,
But I'm anxious.
but anxious is more of a subjective thing.
Yeah,
Like, because the world can't be anxious. Like I'm anxious, but the world can be uncertain.
sure.
So there's an
I'm with
interesting
you.
kind of objective object subject kind of relationship between those two words in my experience.
Yeah.
So it almost feels like to me when we think about the Bonnie world that we're actually more internalizing.
Or
We're
even
internalizing
right.
more what's going on uncertainty wise in the world,
Right.
creating anxiousness.
Yeah, because you might even say people are anxious, maybe even because of uncertainty. But you're right. There's some kind of internalization that happens, bringing it into anxiety.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting. And so then we transition from complexity in the VUCA world into nonlinear in the Banny world.
I experience this nonlinear way that people view the world a lot when I'm talking with clients and people and teams that we're working with, because one of the things that comes up is this kind of like, well, nonlinear is such a great word to
Yeah,
describe
it
it,
really
right?
is a
Like,
great word.
really,
Yeah.
it's a fantastic, but like, I don't understand. Like, it should be A to Z or A to D, but it didn't go like that. One of the reasons I think that's exciting is because it really starts to highlight for us the kind of quantum nature of our world,
Yeah.
which to me makes more sense almost, as we've studied it so much through the years, that to me that nonlinear thing is kind of like, well, yes, that's how it works, as you embrace the nature of the quantum field. But again, that nonlinear is such a great word, and I think it kind of describes the anxiety that people feel, right?
Yeah.
Right, it leads to the nature of the anxiety that people feel when they're in that.
Yeah. So it's the same thing when I think about complex and nonlinear, to me, complex feels very static.
Mm,
Like I could look at something and be like, oh, that's pretty complex. Like I can look at a painting or a drawing or something and or a graph or something. Oh, that's pretty complex. But nonlinear has an element of movement associated with it.
it does, yeah.
So to
And almost like
right, to have something be nonlinear, it means that complexity is
you
in
can't catch it.
motion.
Sure.
So it's not just things are complex, but they are complex, but they're also not linearly affecting one another. Because that complexity, like you said, the quantum field, one particle affects all the particles simultaneously. It's not a linear effect.
Right.
So it's almost like putting this complexity in motion,
Hmm.
which feels very true to me in today's worldscape that things are very dynamic, right? Things are always
Yes.
dynamically
Yes.
dynamically happening because of our level of connectivity,
For
our
sure.
level of brittleness, our level of hypervigilance that goes along with anxiety, right? It creates these nonlinear impacts that kind of just affect themselves out everywhere.
And I think complexity feels like this thing we might be able to tackle. Like it's hard and it's complex, but we can figure it out. Whereas
Yeah.
nonlinear has this kind of, I don't know what to do with it kind of idea baked into it, I think.
Yeah, exactly. And then that last term, ambiguity, kind of transitioning into being incomprehensible.
Hmm.
So ambiguity to me kind of feels like fuzzy, like
Yeah.
it kind of feels ambiguous, but I can make something out about it. Like there's something there. I'm not totally crystal clear on what it is, but I can kind of make some determinations about it. Where kind of the idea of being incomprehensible means that I have no freaking idea like how to relate to this thing.
Right.
Like,
And almost detaches more from it, I
yeah.
think. Right. Than the ambiguity. I can, like you said, I can kind of see some of it. But it doesn't feel completely detached. If anything, it feels like I'm in it a little
Yeah.
bit more.
Yeah. I'm in it, but I don't know how to relate to it.
Right. Right.
And I don't even know how to describe how I don't relate to it.
Right. Yeah. So one of the things that we think about when we think about this Banny Bonnie world is it just sounds exactly like a transformational experience to
Yeah.
us.
Right.
We think it's a fantastic way to conceptualize it actually so you can do something with it. I mean, that's so important to me because we can talk about all these philosophy things and
Mhm.
it could be really interesting, but at the end of the day, what are you going to do with it so it can help people? And I've been conceptualizing this as, whoa, like this is actually signs and symptoms of a transformational experience. Like that, what if that's what this is? All of a sudden, it makes, it gives us an opportunity to like get practical, do something, and really provide service.
Yeah. So when I think about, I agree with you 100%, Ani. Like when we're experiencing these signs of being in the Banny world, brittleness, anxiousness, nonlinear, incomprehensibility, it for me they're all flags for transformation. That transformation is afoot. That something's happening. That change is occurring, and at the same time, when we look at each one of these elements, I think it's important how we manage through that transformation. Like that's also really, really important because we could just spend a whole bunch of time trying to quote unquote
Yeah.
fix the symptoms associated with the brittle,
Right.
anxious, nonlinear, and incomprehensible. But that doesn't necessarily guarantee we're going to have, it actually doesn't guarantee, it actually guarantees we're not going to have a transformation, by the way. So you
100%.
flip it the other way around.
Yeah.
And at the same time, if we recognize that the banning experience is the hallmark signs of a transformation, then what you want to be able to do as a leader is to not seek help to shore up the symptoms of the problem,
Right.
but to seek help from professionals who know about transformation, right? You
Right.
have to have a guide or consultants, coaches to help you actually move all the way through the transformation in a way that will the most safely get you into the change,
Yeah.
right? Because you can actually move through transformations with no guardrails and end up just completely destroying everything. And that's true. So when we think about the idea of brittle, like, so things are going to break easily. If that's a part of the feature of the world right now, then that's a part of the feature of the world, right? Things break easily. So if we know things are going to break easily, what kind of safety measures can we put in place so that when things do break easily,
Because they're
they're
gonna.
going to, we already have a plan in place. I'm going to say that again, already have a preconceived plan in place of what we're going to do when they do break.
Yep. Yeah. And providing, I love how you said safety, providing safety and looking at that to bolster the whole thing because it's going to happen.
Yeah, because I think what would be irresponsible in leadership is to just say, we got to change the thing, so let's just break it and then we'll figure out what to do.
Or hope it doesn't break.
Right. But I think in today's, most people are just breaking things.
Yeah.
I think,
Yeah.
they're like, this isn't changing. It's got to change systemically. We've got to do something. So there's just a lot of breaking going on, but not with a lot of forethought about what are we actually going to do after this breaks.
Yeah, and there's all of this these ideas about how fast things are transforming now that I agree with you because we're seeing quite a bit of this like breaking and discarding without kind of taking care of the wake and it doesn't have to take a lot of time. It's not like we're talking about it's gonna, stall everything, but care around the brittleness and the breaking is so important.
Yeah. And I can almost guarantee that's the reason people feel anxious.
Right.
The reason people feel anxious is because they have a sense that things are going to break, but there's actually no plan
Yeah, but
around how that breaking is going to be
it's
managed.
kind of the idea around anxiety is it's this fear of future circumstances.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. And so the more brittle it feels and the less safety nets it feels like are around us, the more likely that we're going to feel anxious, right?
Yep. And what if you're just trying to fix the anxiety? Then you're symptom chasing.
Yeah, system chasing, right? So you have to understand that that those sensations of anxiety, by the way,
Yeah.
right? Those are a part of a transformation.
Okay, I got to say something I've seen on social media for a few days now. It's come up, and I'm just going to take it as a cue to say something today about this. I have heard a few times over about how we can transform anxiety into excitement. And I just got to call this one on us for a second.
Mhm.
One of the benefits of working from a sensation based approach is that we are getting all of the information to be able to make decisions. And if we just take anxiety and just make it mean excitement, it very well may not be about excitement. There
Correct.
might be more information for us to gather within our system so we can use all of our capacities, including our intuition, including tapping into collective consciousness to be able to
Mhm.
really see what's actually going on, because it might not always be excitement.
Yeah,
Really bothered me when I heard that, because I think it's very disempowering to just tell somebody who's anxious, well, why don't you transform that into excitement, because it's not always what it means.
correct. Yeah. And you're not getting the information that's actually informing someone
Right.
that they're judging something as being anxiety, right? Because
Yeah,
like
you're just
they're
reframing on top of who knows what root causes.
right. It kind of feels to me like one of those things we talk about in terms of the toxic positivity,
Yeah, totally.
right? It feels like a ton of a toxic positivity moment.
Hmm.
And so we're not saying that by going through a process that at times you can't transform
For sure.
anxiety into something that feels like excitement,
For sure, but do
but
it
there's a transformational process that has to happen. It's not just a decide to do it.
do it based on all the information,
Yeah.
not just partial information. If you don't know what's going on in there around the sensations and the beliefs and the stories and the narratives and all that stuff, then it might be a cause for alarm that you're ignoring or something. It might be really important information that you're passing up.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
thanks for that little soapbox,
Sure.
because I was wondering why that kept popping into my social media feed this week.
Yeah,
There you
there it is.
go.
So let's go on to nonlinear now. So this is really interesting. So as a leader, I think now, and so we're saying it now. So hopefully after this point, it'll be like, oh, like it's no longer naive to think, but it is naive to think that as a leader, when I make a decision, it's only going to affect one other thing.
It's going to affect
It's
everything.
going to affect everything.
Everything. And this is one of the reasons why we believe that, BANI world or not, that leaders should have strategic advisors who are helping them personally do their own transformational work
Mm,
when they're looking at transforming their organizations, their companies, and their teams.
yep.
Because everything is connected to everything. It's like our nervous system.
Instantaneously now.
Instantaneously,
Yep.
our nervous system is connected to everything. You were in a class recently talking about this. I wish I could remember exactly what it
Mm,
was. Maybe you do, but you were talking about how our nervous system is connected to all things. And the way you were describing it was made perfect sense. And I was like, yeah. It's not just like it's not just superficial, folks. It's not just superficial, this idea that we're connected to all things.
yeah, exactly. Well, if you just think about it, from a biological aspect, of course, like our nervous system is connected to everything, right? It's connected to us internally, but our nervous system also extends into the environment. We know
Mhm.
that. But if you just think about technology and social media and where we are today, like you make a decision and you press a button on your phone and it goes to the whole world.
Yep.
Anybody else with a phone, anybody else that's connected to you immediately. That's what we talk about nonlinear. Now, every one of those people are going to feel differently about what you just posted or what you just said. And that's going to create ripple effects throughout the whole. Just look at what's going on in the world right now. It's completely nonlinear. To sort of think that one person makes one decision or does one thing and only affects one area is completely naive right now.
Yeah.
I would actually say it's ignorant. So as leaders, we have to understand that every decision we make is going to have ripple effect in all directions. We have to be able to plan for that. And that's because everything feels more brittle. Things are less environmentally resilient, right? So we make one decision and it has a effect that is in a brittle system that feels incomprehensible then to people. So let's go on to the last one. It feels like people then have no idea what the heck is going on, right? They just cannot describe it. They don't know what's happening. They can't relate to what's happening because things are changing so fast and they feel really out of control.
Yes. And again, as a part of a transformational process, this makes perfect sense because we're actually pattern recognizing machines. That's how our brains work. And so when things are transforming, we don't recognize and we can't put it in the file folder in our brain because we can't find the file folder and and we need to actually work towards creating new patterns, creating new identities, creating new systems and ways of understanding. Um, and that, will take a little time, but that's part of the transformation. That's how it works.
Yeah, and as leaders, it's incumbent upon leaders to take themselves through the transformational processes so that they can lead their organizations and their teams and their people as well.
Right. Yes. And talk about how it's going. Because, and I'm not even talking about sharing your own personal stuff, although you certainly could, but having had the experience is kind of like being able to share the journey with people. Like you can't even describe to your people and relate to your people and figure out systems for your people if you don't have an idea of what it's like
Mhm.
for yourself.
Correct. Yeah, correct.
Right. Once you have an idea of what it's like, you have, and again, I'm not saying you got to share all your personal stuff, but like, what walking through the transformation is like.
Yeah.
It's one of the reasons why when we do our Somatic Coach professional program, it's so powerful because the coaches for themselves through the process of a number of months walk through their own transformational journey so that, I mean, even if they learn none of the tools, which of course they will, at the end, they can go to their clients. I get it. I see you. I see where you are. And
Mhm.
this is part of it. But you don't know unless you've been through it.
Yeah, you have to be able to hold that space
Yeah,
for the transformation
100%.
and do it in a way where it's filled with recognition for what the a person going through transformation is experiencing,
And empowerment.
empowering
You
them
can
through
you
it.
can really empower people when you've walked through the process, but otherwise you can kind of like get messed up in it
Yeah,
because you don't really trust the process because you haven't been through the process.
sure. Yeah,
So how can you trust them when you don't trust yourself?
exactly, exactly. So really kind of to summarize our conversation about the BANI world, brittle, anxious, nonlinear, incomprehensible, is that is a framework that is being talked about in a way that describes our current culture that we live within the world. All those things are likely kind of true and reflected back in a certain degree. I think we've kind of talked about that, talked about how the world is changing and transforming more into a dynamic kind of instead of just a conceptualized kind of framework, this is actually a dynamic living framework that people are experiencing. We're going through transformation cycles more quickly. Transformation happens more readily nowadays. And so we can spend a lot of time trying to work with the symptoms of the brittle, of the anxious, of the nonlinear, of the incomprehensible. Or you can work with people who are skilled at helping you to move through a transformation in a way where on the other side of it, you become the kind of person, the kind of leader who can then guide other people through that transformation as well.
Yeah, yeah, like actually evolve through the transformation.
Yes.
Yeah, it just brings me back to that famous Einstein quote, Brian, about you can't change a problem from the same level of consciousness that created it.
Yep.
And the most ideal situation when you go through a transformation is that on the other side of it, you are actually operating from a higher level of
Yep.
consciousness. So, Yeah.
Yep. So thanks so much for joining us this week. I hope that this topic was useful for you. Please send us an email, comment below, let us know what really stuck with you from this podcast, and we would love to know.
Yep. And if there's certain things that are really bothering you about the BANI world, like are really coming up for you that you're experiencing, let us know about that too, because we'd love to address it on future podcasts.
Cool. Thanks so much for joining us.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode. We hope that this conversation will help you improve your practice and change the way you think about your work, your clients, and yourself.
Continue your exploration of trauma-sensitive somatic coaching by listening to more podcast episodes at somaticcoachingacademy.com. You could be the trusted guide that people turn to help them with their most challenging situations and to reach their most precious goals. Thank you for joining us.
We'll see you next time.